So today we're talking happiness, because who of you doesn't want to be at least a little bit happier? And I'm going to share with you 5 things that over the past little while have made a really big impact on my happiness. And when I talk about happiness, I don't just mean that everything is sunshine and rainbows and roses all the time, but like deeper things that shift that internal stuff that just allow us to experience just a better sense of well-being, that allow us to just go through life with less emotional drama, with more emotional stability, with just feeling more confident and comfortable and stable in who we are. And it was really interesting because just a little while ago, I was with family. I was visiting some family, and one night I was having a talk with my older brother, just the two of us, and we were having a really good conversation, a really deep conversation. And at one point he said to me, "You have become the most emotionally stable person in our family." And I kind of looked at him and I said, "Thank you, that means a lot, but it didn't happen by accident. It's because I've done my work." And it's not only these 5 things that have led to that, but these are 5 of the big ones that have made a significant impact over the past little while. And so I wanted to share them with you so that you can start using them too, and so that you can start feeling better, just even a little bit better in your everyday life. If you're new to me, and this is the first time we're connecting, I am really glad that you are here. If you're not new to me and you're back again, then I am so glad that you are here again. If you are new, then do say hello in the comment section below. I would love to say hello to you back, and even just let me know how you found me, how you came across my videos. I would love to hear that as well. But my name is Kristina, and I am a registered clinical therapist, a researcher, and a master coach. I have a master's degree in counseling psychology, and I work to help heart-centered go-getter men and women break through worry, anxiety, and self-doubt so that they can get out of their heads, get into their lives, and love their lives. Okay, let's get right to these. Let's get right to these 5 happiness-building habits that are simple but really transformational if we are intentional about using them. And the first one, but wait a second, before you write me off of this one, you're gonna hear this and you're gonna say, "Julie, I've heard this before, I know this one, this is not new news to me," but wait a second and let me explain. So the first one is to set goals. And this isn't about, contrary to popular teaching, that getting to your goals and feeling successful and feeling strong or feeling good about yourself or feeling accomplished or feeling smart or whatever it is once you get to that goal. That's not the point of having a goal. Because if that's the point, then what happens when you reach a goal? That you get there and you feel good and you feel successful, you feel smart, you feel accomplished, you feel great about yourself for a really short amount of time, usually a few minutes, maybe a few hours, a few days if you're lucky. And then what happens? You say to yourself, okay, what's next? And the bar raises, and then you think that you need to get to the next thing in order to feel good. And so our whole lives just become about these blips of accomplished goals that allow us, it's only when we get to those accomplished goals that we allow ourselves to feel good. And we're missing everything else in between. We're thinking that we're only allowed to feel happy and strong and accomplished and capable and competent and successful when we get to these points. But then we waste all the space in between. And so the point of having a goal is not about reaching the goal. Reaching the goal is important. It's good that we sometimes, at least sometimes, reach our goals. And it's also good to feel good when we reach our goals. But the point of having a goal is not just to reach the goal. The point of having a goal is about the process of how we need to grow, how we need to stretch ourselves, what we need to overcome, the things that we need to face and deal with in the process of getting to that goal. The stretching, the learning, the expanding, the growing that happens in the process. And if we're able to recognize ourselves in that process, we are going to get so much more happiness and satisfaction out of our goals if we allow ourselves to recognize each bit of growth and learning and overcoming and facing that we are doing along the way. The next thing, the next habit that's going to have a big impact on our happiness is to not believe everything you think. That your thoughts are not always truths, and your thoughts even will sometimes try to trick you. And I have a whole video about this, about the reptilian part of our brain and how our brain is sort of designed with this natural negative bias. So we actually even just have to work to think neutral about things, let alone thinking positive about stuff. But our brain has this, and it's mostly for survival. I have a whole other video. I'll link to that in the description below so you can watch that after. But then there's also these messages that we were told by our parents, our coaches, our teachers, our siblings, our friends, whoever it was that thought their opinion about us should be what we think or who we think we are. And then we grow up thinking that, and we have these ideas and we have these thoughts about who we are, and they're often not really positive, uplifting, encouraging, empowering thoughts. Some of them are, but those ones often get overshadowed by these other ones. Or we grow up with messages like, oh, if I don't think I should have to do something, then I shouldn't have to do it, even if it's something that's actually good for us. So really thinking about our thoughts and how they come in there, and they try to often throw us off or hold us back or make us feel like crap. We get to decide which of the thoughts we are going to attach to, which of the thoughts we are going to entertain. And now this isn't about saying that like, oh, any thought that makes me a little uncomfortable or any thought that I don't like, I'm just gonna ignore it. I'm just not gonna pay attention to it. No, it's not about avoiding, but it's about asking ourselves, is this thought helpful or useful or serving? Is this going to be helpful to me in some way? And sometimes it means like taking a step back, and if my thought is like, oh, I kind of acted like a jerk to that person, I need to apologize, or I need to deal with that, or I need to make that right. Even if that feels uncomfortable, not being able to say, well, I don't like that thought. I don't like that thought that's making me uncomfortable, that I have to actually apologize for this. No, that's not what we're saying, and you know that. I'm not talking about those thoughts. I'm talking about the unnecessary, unhelpful, unserving thoughts that aren't actually productive or useful or getting us anywhere at all. So not always believing what you think. Thoughts are not always truths, and they sometimes even try to trick you. If unattaching from your thoughts and not getting so pulled in and clinging to every little thought that comes through your brain is something that you want to learn how to be better at, I have a free download for you. It's my 10-minute guided mindfulness exercise. You can pause the video right now, go down to the description below. I'll put the link there, and you can download that right away. And I love this exercise because it really just helps us not get so pulled into those unhelpful, unnecessary thoughts. So, deciding which thoughts I'm going to indulge and engage in, which are the ones that are going to be helpful and which are the ones that are not. And then the next happiness habit, and this is such a huge one as well, is to not let your inner critic take over or make your decisions for you. And again, I have a whole video I talk about this. Is one of my favorite videos about this inner critic that we all have. It's part of our common humanity. It's just part of who we are. Again, that negative part of our brain, that negative bias, part of it's for survival. And then also these other messages that we've taken in and absorbed throughout our lives, and we don't actually question those thoughts, those beliefs, those self-criticisms. We don't actually question and say, well, who says? Who decided that? Whose opinion is that? Is that me, or is that just someone else's issue that I have absorbed? Is this messages I was told from a parent who had their own issues, their own insecurities, and they took it out on me, and now I've just blindly accepted that as my truth? But what if it's not my truth? What if it's their truth or their issue or their stuff, and I don't need to take it on? That I get to decide who I am. I get to define me. Nobody else gets to define me. And so that inner critic that likes to come in and knock us down, tell us we're not good enough, we're not smart enough, we're not successful enough, we're not attractive enough, we're not worthy enough of love, whatever that is, not letting that inner critic take over. Now, anyone who tells you that you can control your thoughts, that you can control this inner critic and stop it from ever coming in, they are lying, because you can't. It is part of our brain. It's always going to be in there. So we can't stop it altogether, but we can learn how to handle it better. We can learn how to stand up to that bully. We can learn how to stand up to that inner mean girl or that inner mean guy that likes to come in and try to take us down. We can learn how to talk back to it. We can learn how to challenge it. This is so much of what I teach in my breakthrough coaching program. This is a big part of it, but learning what language that we need to use to keep that inner critic in its place. And for some of us, it's not just one inner critic. For some of us, it's a whole committee of a-holes, a whole committee that likes to come in there and likes to try to knock us down or hold us back or keep us down. But not letting that committee or that inner critic have the final say. We either decide not to pay attention to it, not attach to it, like we talked about in the last one about not attaching to those thoughts, or we learn how to challenge it, how to talk back to it, how to stand up to it, how to put it in its place. This is such a big one for so many of us. And another part with the inner critic is that even if it is there, even if it is strong, we still don't have to let it make our decisions for us. We can still decide what we're going to do, even with that fear, even with that self-doubt, even with that. If we can't keep that inner critic in place just yet, if we can't get rid of it just yet, if it just is feeling really relentless and it's really like in there, we can still make our own choices and do it with the fear, do it with the doubt, do it with the insecurity. We can still make choices. We don't have to feel comfortable and confident and empowered before we start. Often, when we get going and doing something, when we show the inner critic like, hey, you're here, I can't seem to get rid of you, but I'm going to do it with you, and we do it, that inner critic is like, oh, wait a second, I didn't win. You're still doing it. So I guess I don't really have a whole lot of place here. I guess I don't really need to stick around. I guess I don't really have a lot of power here if she or he is going to do it anyways. And so, okay, if you can't always put your inner critic in its place, do it anyways. And the inner critic will start to cower under the fact, under the pressure, and under the knowing that it's not winning. The next one. This is a huge one, especially in this day and age. And this has been a big one for me. And I think that this is a big one for most of us. And before I tell you what this one is, I want to tell you a story about it. So this was several years ago. I was at a yoga class here in Vancouver, and the teacher of the class was this guy named Reno. And Reno is kind of legendary in Vancouver. He is an amazing yoga teacher. People love him. The class was packed. And just by chance, if any of you live in Vancouver or have ever taken a class by Reno, I would love to hear in the comment section below, just in the slim chance. But I remember I was in this Reno class and the class was packed. There was at least 70 people in the room. And partway through the yoga session, he said something and I felt like he was talking directly to me. And maybe he was, but I'm guessing I wasn't the only one in the room doing this. As I'm doing my yoga poses, I'm looking around at the other people in the room to kind of see how I measure up. Who's better than me and who's not as good as me and who's struggling and who's killing it. And that's where my head was at. And it was as if he read my mind, because he bellowed out in his deep, monotonous voice, keep your eyes on your own practice. Do not invade anybody else's space with your comparison. Schooled right then and there. I was like, yep, I was totally doing that. I was totally comparing myself to other people and feeling better about myself because there was someone else next to me who was struggling, and feeling crappy about myself because there was someone else who was like doing like a one-handed, one-headed handstand with their legs all like split up in the air. I don't know. But you know what I mean. Keep your eyes on your own practice. In other words, do not compare yourself to anyone else. Someone else's journey is none of your business. What someone else has going on, someone else's success, someone else's failure, it's none of your business because it has nothing to do with you. It is a waste of time and energy and emotional well-being and happiness when we compare ourselves to other people, because someone else's success has nothing to do with ours. Someone else's failure has nothing to do with ours. It's our journey. What's our business is what we are doing, how we are growing, what we are overcoming, what we are learning, how we are stretching, how we are expanding. It's not about what anybody else is doing. Someone else doing better than us in a certain area does not make us be doing worse. Someone else doing worse than us in a certain area does not make us be doing better. These are isolated things. It has nothing to do with anyone else. It's not helpful. So checking that one, this is a tough one, especially with social media, especially with other people's apparent lives in our faces. Most of the time, it's not true, whatever they're portraying or projecting, and all of the time, it's not helpful to be comparing ourselves. Such a big one. You can see I get a little hot under the collar about it. The next one, and before you roll your eyes, before you write me off, before you get super annoyed with me for saying this, let me explain why. So the fifth thing that is going to have a huge impact on your overall happiness is taking care of your body. Now, this isn't about getting skinny. This isn't about getting stronger. This isn't about looking a certain way. This is about feeling a certain way. Our brains and our bodies, I didn't make this up. I didn't invent it. They are so interconnected. I believe from the research that I've done that you cannot actually experience optimal happiness and well-being without moving your body every single day. That in our lives, in our days, especially those of us who are more highly sensitive, we are taking things in, we're absorbing stuff, we're absorbing emotions and energy and stuff all around us all the time. Even if we have good boundaries, things are still getting in there, and if we're not moving it through, it gets stuck in there, and it turns into things like anxiety and depression and overwhelm and frustration and procrastination. We absorb it and we take it in and we don't know what to do with it. We have to be able to move it through. Moving your body, it doesn't have to be profound. It has to be something every single day. If it's walking around the block twice, getting a power walk in there. If it's doing a more intense workout, great, but it's not necessary for your emotional and mental well-being. 30 minutes of mild to moderate exercise a day is all that it takes for your mental well-being. Now, I'm not saying that if you do this, you're all of a sudden, not going to have any problems and that exercise is the secret to happiness. It's not the secret, but it is one of the secrets. It is one of the essential pieces. We cannot have a healthy mind if we do not have a healthy body. So yes, I am adamant about this because of all the research that I've done about it. It's clear. And we know it, we know it, but do we really know it? Are we really taking this in and taking this seriously? And also, not just with our physical bodies, also with moving our bodies, but also how we're nourishing our bodies. And I'm not gonna sit here and tell you don't eat sugar and don't eat carbs and go on some really strict diet and you have to completely change your life from go from 0 to 100 overnight. Absolutely not. But I am talking about being more mindful of what you're putting in your body, or even just experimenting with it. Experiment for a few days what it feels like to nourish your body with, I call it, what do I call it? How do I say it? Just one second, let me think about this. Oh yeah, I remember now. So it's lean, green, healthy fats, and carbs with all that. So take a day, eat some lean protein, eat lots of greens, lots of vegetables, eat some healthy fats like your olive oils and your nuts, and carbs with all that. So complex carbohydrates like your yams and your multigrain breads. Take a day and eat that and check in with yourself and see how you feel. Take a couple days and do it. I'm not saying do anything extreme, but just check in and see how you feel. Experiment with it. Maybe it'll make no difference at all, but I'm guessing that it's going to make a big difference, and that's going to help motivate you to be more mindful and more respectful of your body. Now, talking about this whole exercise thing and moving your body. And one of the sort of like the moments, the key defining moments for me when I realized how important this was years ago. This was like 10 years ago when I was writing my master's thesis. And I remember spending like 12 to 14 hours a day holed up in my living room, in my apartment, at the computer, writing my thesis. And by the end of the day, I just feel like I wanted to crawl out of my skin. I would be so frustrated. I'd just have all this emotional energy in me. And my husband would come home, and I would be sitting there, and you could just tell that I was just carrying all of this like tension. And he would walk over to me and he'd hand me my runners, and he'd say, "Get out and go for your walk." And I'd say, "No, I just need to finish this. I just need to get through this. I just need to get this part done." He's like, "You're not being productive. You're not going to be able to do it. You can't think clearly. You're not working. Like, things are not working right now. There's too much going on inside. Get out and move the energy through and go for your walk." And I'd fight him, and I'd just resist it. And finally I'd be like, "Okay, I'm going." And like, honestly, 30 minutes, just walking down a few blocks and back. And I'd come back and I'd feel like a whole new person. And I'd be like, "All right, let's do this. Let's keep going." And so for me, it was that point forward when I realized that no matter what I have going on, moving my body every single day is essential. Which one of these connected with you? Which one of these gave you a shift? Either a big shift or even just a little bit of a shift. And sometimes it's those little shifts, one by one, that create the big breakthroughs. So let me know in the comment section below. I would love to hear. If you haven't already, come and join my Facebook group, GoodForMeGroup.com. Join me on Instagram. I'm on there regularly in between YouTube videos, sharing and doing other little teachings and inspirations, and just sharing a little bit more of my life and my journey, and hopefully things that'll help you grow and learn in your own. So join me on Instagram, like the video, share it out, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and it is always so good to have you here. Grab that free download, that 10-minute guided mindfulness exercise. Grab that below, and looking forward to seeing you next time. Till then, take good care.